Hello, good morning, and welcome to the Dailies, your morning programs, where we take you through some of the papers and also looking at some of the, stories that are making it on the front page of the paper. Quite a number of events actually happened concerning the substandard fuel that we're having, as well as also looking at passing on to glory of Edwin Clark that happened recently. So quite a number of stories. Please do well to drop your comment, your views, and any other thing that you feel is quite relevant to this program this morning. I am Stella Elisha Dashom. I'm doing this program together with Rachel Tansi. Good morning,
Good
Rachel.
morning, Celine.
All right, we will be looking at the papers, starting with New Nigerian Newspaper.
The first story on New Nigerian Zamfara market explosion. Senator Yari sponsors medical bills of all victims. In Oshun, Call Oyetola APC talks to other Timi Frank tells Tinubu. The big story, Northern Governors mourn elder statesman Chief Edwin Clark. The writer says he was a great fearless man, a very national leader, Fasorante is saying. Edwin Clark, a champion of equity and inclusion, a statement from CUPP. APC bad governance has plunged Nigerian masses into extreme hardship. A statement from the opposition party PDP says ruling party lacks compassion. Etsu Lokoja mourns victim of Felele Road accident. Goronyo inspects FEMA road project in Nasarawa State, commends Tinubu for infrastructure development. Lagos Abuja bullet train will boost Nigeria's infrastructure. This is a statement from Consortium. You can find details on page 3. Rights group raises alarm over militarization of drug other market in Onisha by NAFDAC. You can find details on page 2. Group condemns visa denial to CDS. Musa demands apology from Canada. Dangote is now 86th richest in the world. This is Forbes ranking. The writer says wealth surges by almost 100% to $23.9 billion. Retains wealthiest person in Africa. Now that he has gone into oil, I believe he will stay number one for a very long period of time. You can find details on page 3, and that's all the news on New Nigerian Newspaper.
On Nigerian news, the Rex Sanwo-Olu commissions Abule Ekpa terminal with detail found on page 13. Dangote's wealth soared as Forbes ranked him the 86th richest man in the world. Benue Assembly moves to remove Chief Judge over electoral law directive. Tinubu, Obasanjo, Atiku, others mourn as Pandef icon Edwin Clark dies at 97. Meter bypass, NERC empowers discos to disconnect illegal connections arbitrarily. You can find that on page 3. Regarding substandard fuel, Kyari flees allegation, vows to take legal action. The writer says defend fuel importation as global industry practice. And we have two picture story. One is talk and do, where we can see the contraction ongoing. This is happening in Ogun State government. And then the second is Sanwo-Olu effect continuity. That's talking about some of the project he is busy inaugurating. And this happened recently as well in Lagos State. And that's all on Nigerian News Direct newspaper.
On First News newspaper, Nebuchadnezzar's era over in Rivers, Fubara declares. Edo Assembly passes death penalty for kidnapping offenders. U.S. to investigate aid used in Nigeria. Chika Ike sets the record straight. Ned Nwoku, not my baby's father. NAS revises 2025 budget, adjusts capital recurrent expenditure. You can find details inside the paper. The big story is CBN to banks expose dormant account unclaimed funds now. No order to arrest women walking without pants or bras. This is a statement from the Anambra government. DSS threatens lawsuit over Lagos Assembly invasion report. We have a story from NNPCL. We haven't imported PMS in 2025, so we are still on old stock. We have a picture story where we can see the Rivers State Governor Siminalayi Fubara left and Bayelsa State Governor Doyi Diri share a warm moment leaning towards each other with smiles as they engage in conversation during the commissioning of the twin labor buildings in Yenogwa, Bayelsa State. This happened yesterday, and that's all the news on First News newspaper.
On Vanguard newspaper, CBN direct banks to publish dormant accounts. Education suffers reduced allocation as National Assembly amend past 2025 budget. So you might want to look at the budget and see what actually happened, what are the allocation for not just education but other relevant sector. You can find out on page 8. Federal government commissions NDIDA first barrack in Yola after 35 years. Military should be barred from elections in Nigeria. This is coming from Jonathan, and you want to find out why? Look that story up on page 8. The big story here is special report. High electricity cause choking teaching hospitals to death. High electricity cause choking teaching hospitals to death. You can read that story on page 14. And regarding the Boko Haram in the country, U.S. to audit aid funds to Nigeria. We will recall there was a report that came in from Pera. This happened last week, where he actually accused the U.S. aid of funding Boko Haram. Now the U.S. are trying to audit not just for Boko Haram, but they talked about terrorism in other states, the likes of Afghanistan and even Pakistan. So you can do well to find out what more detail of the story on page 24 of the Vanguard newspaper. NDDC group wants organizers to desist from protests. Fears grew over Pope's health as Vatican channels upcoming event. Fears grew over the Pope's health as Vatican cancel upcoming event. We will recall Pope Francis is actually down, so we hope that he gets recover quickly. On Sport Channel to watch Musa Kanu Peters, that's regarding sport. And here we're seeing his last words: don't give up on making Nigeria better. This is coming from his family as Tinubu, Obasanjo, Jonathan, Atiku, Akpabio, Obi, and other governors mourn. Bayelsa direct all flags to fly at half marks for 3 days. You can find more detail of this on page 5, and that's all on Vanguard newspaper.
On Leadership newspaper, Dangote's wealth hit $23.9 billion, now 86th world richest. 789 ex-Boko Haram fighters undergoing rehabilitation, a report from the CDS. Trending, CBN orders bank directors to retire over bad loans. Numbers, inflation rate drops to 24.28% from 34.80%. You can find trendings and numbers on page 2. Despite 24.48% rebate inflation, price pressures persist. Tinubu, Akpabio, Buhari, others mourn as Clark dies at 97. The big story on the paper, National Assembly amends 2025 budget over allocation errors. The writer says with current expenditure now 13.558 trillion naira, 23.439 trillion naira for capital budget, defense, NSA, police, information, others affected. On peace deal, Russia rejects NATO troops in Ukraine. 33 illegal miners arrested in Niger. You can find details on page 18. Death toll in Benue attack rises to 34. Boko Haram, U.S. to audit aid funds to Nigeria. Details can be found on page 14, and that's all the news on Leadership newspaper.
On the Guardian newspaper, House summoned INEC over delay in conducting by-elections, with detail on page 3. MBS unveiled new inflation template reduces food weight to 40%. Sanwo-Olu Don raised alarm over rising mental health issues among boys. You can find more detail on page 7. Federal government launches nationwide crackdown on miracle centers. Detail on page 6. We have Lagos Assembly denies Tinubu's involvement in the crisis, where recently there were talks that Remi Tinubu is actually part of the people that instigating the violence there or the crisis. And here we see the Assembly have come out to debunk that, denying that she have no involvement in that. Concerns over critical mineral safety, rising vulnerability in illegal mining. That's on business. And then we have Defense Headquarters confirm rehabilitation integration of 789 ex-terrorists. Downside of the paper, and also the last story I'll be taking, Niger Delta Group once again disruption of peace in the region, with detail on page 29, and that's all on the Guardian newspaper.
On Nigerian Tribune, the big story, bank directors with non-performing insider loans to resign, CBN orders. Asks banks to regularize loans within 180 days. You can find details on page 6. At the top of the paper, NBS explains why Nigeria's inflation rate falls to 24.48% after rebasing. 5 days after passage, National Assembly adjusts portions of 2025 budget, retains 54.99 trillion naira total. So it's not like there's a deduction in the total amount of the budget, but actually the allocations to different ministries and agencies. Reps to organize public hearing on new tax reform bills next Wednesday. Probe INEC over delay in conducting over 12 by-elections. Still on Nigerian Tribune, Southwest governors will give Adebanjo befitting funeral, a statement from Sanwo-Olu. Lagos Assembly crisis, DSS threatens lawsuit against broadcast stations. Don't disrupt peace of Niger Delta over mother of all protest, Niger Delta peace advocates warns. Edo Assembly approves death sentence for kidnappers. I think if other states would take this drastic measure, maybe we will see a drop in the crime of kidnapping. You can find details on page 28. We have Edwin Clark here, 25th May 1927 to 17th February 2025. Tinubu, Obasanjo, Jonathan Atiku, governors order paid tribute. Dogged fighter, uncompromising patriot, rich builder. You can find details of how he has been described on page 3, 17, 18, and 19. Jonathan kicks against deployment of military personnel for elections, says only police INEC should manage future elections. Obi says integrity of election determined by leadership in charge. 789 ex-terrorists undergoing de-radicalization rehabilitation program. Appeal court affirms Oba Olaoye Asaun of Ogbomoso. You can find details on page 20, and that's all the news on Nigerian Tribune.
On the Daily Times newspaper, House urges INEC to conduct by-elections for vacant seats with detail on page 4. NLC shut down IBEDC over sack of 3,000 workers. You can find more detail of that story on page 2. Tinubu, Obi, Atiku, governors and others mourn as Clark dies at 97. NSA hands over 59 kidnapped victims to Kaduna government. Kidnappers now to face death penalty in Edo State. EFCC arrests 15 suspected internet fraudsters in Abuja. 2 killed as Hausa Fulani youth clash in Jigawa. You can find detail on page 2. We have the picture story where we can see the Senate Committee Chairman on Army, Abdul Razak, and then the Senate Committee Chairman on Labor and Productivity, Duke, and then the Deputy Senate President Jibrin, and also the President of the Senate, Godwin Akpabio, and then we have Senator Abdul Ningi, and also the Senate Committee Chairman on Solid Mineral during a plenary yesterday, and that's all on Daily Times newspaper.
On Daily Independent, the first story, talks on fall quality, just drama, bad marketing antics, says Kyari. National Assembly revises 2025 budget, reduces capital expenditure by over 500 billion naira. The big story on Daily Independent, politicians will behave well when we reject bad behavior. A statement from Jonathan. False deployment of military for elections. You can start with the details on the front page. 35-year-old jinx broken as federal government commissions first NDLEA barracks. Reps probe INEC over delay in conducting by-elections. NERC introduces tougher measures to combat electricity theft. Tinubu, Ibori, Jonathan Atiku, Northern, Southern governors mourn Clark. After rebasing, Nigeria's inflation drops to 24.48% from 34.80%. The last story on the paper, federal government to facilitate single-digit loans for MSMEs. Details can be found on page 6, and that's all the news on Daily Independent newspaper.
On the Punch newspaper, starting with a big story, workers in 109 embassies groan over 6 months unpaid salaries. The writer here says ministry promises to clear arrears, ex-envoy kick. More detail of the story can be found on page 2. And concerning inflation drop, expert demand lower interest rate. That is regarding some of the loans being collected from the banks. Yesterday we saw how it's going to affect manufacturers and other smaller businesses if something is not done about the interest rate. You can read details of that as well on page 2. Tinubu Obasanjo orders mourn as Edwin Clark dies at 97. Dangote's wealth rises to $24 billion after refinery operations. And on the 54 trillion naira budget, which if you round it up is almost getting to 55 because it's 54.99, we're seeing that the National Assembly have raised recurrent votes, cut 500 billion naira from the capital spending. You want to know why they reduce the capital spending, where more funds are needed to run certain infrastructures and capitals in the country. You can do well to read that on page 18. John Vance UK agency invests 40.5 million dollars to expand Nigerian's cocoa industry. John Vance UK agency invests $40.5 million to expand Nigerian's cocoa industry. More detail can be found on page 22. Ukraine protests exclusion as US Russia raise team to end the war. As we are aware that European countries have come together to see how talks regarding the end of this war can actually happen. So you can read more detail of that on page 30. Lagos Assembly says Tinubu's wife not involved in crisis. Immigration arrests 40 illegal migrants in Oyo State. And then regarding the Osun crisis, police go after killers. Local government poll holds Saturday. So I think to just put a rest to this back and forth is good. An election is being conducted so that we have the legal local government chairman occupying the office. We have a picture story as well on the front page. Please do well to get the paper, read more detail of these and others.
On this day newspaper, NBS unveils special CPI indices to enhance policy and decision making. The writer says explains new rebased inflation figures. Inflation MPR top agenda as MPC reconvenes today. Drop in inflation due to CPI rebasing, not real reduction in price levels. This is a clarification from LCCI. Analysts urge CBN to hold rate hike as price moderate. In historic development, Netherlands to return 119 Benin bronze to Nigeria. Items represent single largest return of Benin antiquities linked to British expedition. And this is, we are making progress in getting back what belongs to us. And I believe the Netherlands are doing good by Nigerians. You can start with the details on the front page and continue on page 33. The big story, Ijaw leader and last of Nigeria's old brigade, Clark dies at 97. Tinubu, Obasanjo, Buhari, Jonathan, Atiku, and Yaku Okpabio governors, Obi, Otedo, Peter Side, Akinyemi, political parties, others pay homage. We have a picture story here, MEME Council meeting with Vice President, where we can see the Vice President alongside Minister of Women Affairs, alongside the Deputy Governor of Enugu State, alongside Deputy Chief of Staff of the President, and others. That's all the news on this day newspaper.
Alright, let's move on now to the Daily Monitor newspaper. Edwin Clark, Obasanjo, Tinubu, Jonathan, Atiku, and Obi mourn the death. The big story, Tinubu committed to transparency, sustainable growth in the oil and gas industry coming from Kumo Lafe. The writer here says links the recent crude oil production surge to Tinubu's dexterity in navigating Nigeria's economic landscape. Alleged funding of Boko Haram, U.S. probes aid disbursement in Nigeria with detail found on page 2. And we have IGP deploys of tactical squad to restore normalcy in Osun State. Warns political actors. More detail can be found in the paper. Nobody can suspend or expel me from PDP for saying the truth. Well, this is coming from Wabara is insisting. Inflation drops to 24.48%, but high prices persist. Nigerian Army Corps marshals 5 officers, 20 soldiers in Enugu. Appeal Court affirms Odeode as the assault of Obomosho. We have the pictures there as well, still where we can see the Vice President chairing the first meeting of the National Council of Micro, Small and Medium Enterprises for 2025, and this was held at the Presidential Villa yesterday. And that's all on Daily Monitor newspaper.
On the Matrix newspaper, relief looms as federal government CBN move to facilitate single-digit loans for MSMEs. On the UCL playoff, AC Milan Atalanta went out by Brook and then Monaco crashed out Bayern in narrow escape. Chief Edwin Clark tributes pour in for Lion of Niger Delta. History will remember him as gallant defender of Niger Deltans. Right, a statement from Tinubu, Atiku, Obi, Obasanjo others month. National Assembly adjusts 2025 budget, boost recurrent spending by 500 billion naira. The big story: fuel importation, poor quality report, NPPC Limited kicks. Talks on fuel quality just drama, bad marketing tactics. Gary saying insists NNPC Limited didn't import products this year. Campaign of calumny against NNPC Limited must stop, a statement from Nigerians. Nigeria's inflation rate drops to 24.48% on the rebased CPI. Appeal court upholds Oba Gandhi Olaoye as sound of a bomb. Details can be found on page 9. Slain Oshun LG boss Remy Abbas laid to rest. We have an entertainment story with the back and forth going on with Portable. You can find details on page 30. And the picture story, boosting infrastructure development, where we can see Lagos State Governor Babajide Sanwo-Olu commissioning the newly completed Abule Egba bus terminal in Orile, Agege local government council development area yesterday. And that's all the news on the Matrix newspaper.
Moving on to the next paper, which is this Nigerian newspaper. NNPCL denies allegation of fuel importation in 2025 with detail on page 13. Flush out fake drug syndicates, reps blow hot. The writer say raised concern over rebranding of expired drugs, altering expired dates, production of fake medication being circulated to unsuspecting Nigerians. More detail can be found on page 4. Clark Ijon leader takes a bow at 97. Tinubu, Obasanjo, governors and others mourn. Regarding election rigging, Hall of Shame will serve as deterrent. Ex-President Jonathan, others at the ex-IGP Arize book launch decry electoral malpractices and insecurity with detail found in the paper. We have a cross-section of participants during a general sanitization of all staff of the ICPC in Abuja yesterday, and that's all on this day newspaper.
On New Telegraph newspaper, CBN orders bank directors with insider bad loans to resign, amends guidelines on management of dormant accounts. Currency outside banks up 44.5% to 4.74 trillion naira in January. I believe that the bid in for central bank to make sure that banks circulating outside is failing. I hope that they bring about new measures to see if this can help boosting the quality or the value of our currency. You can find details on page 25. Reps urge INEC to conduct by-elections in National State Assembly's vacant seats. We have not imported fuel in 2025 despite our right to do so. NNPC Limited is clarifying all the rumors concerning bringing in bad fuel. In Vatican, Pope Francis has pneumonia in both lungs. Forbes, Dangote's wealth surges to $23.9 billion, now 86th richest globally. The big story is on 40% of Benue farmlands taken over by bandits. A report from lawmakers seeks Tinubu's intervention as attacks escalate. Over 130,000 terrorists have surrendered in 9 years. 2,190 de-radicalized, a report from the CDS. NSA hands over 59 rescued hostages to Kaduna government. Renowned lawyer, activist, Ijaw leader Clark joins his ancestors at 97. On Lagos Osun crisis, Nigerians demand good governance, not chaos, Atiku tells Tinubu. PDP acknowledges Ude Okoye as National Secretary. Group warns against disruption of hard-earned peace in Niger Delta. We have a study that says alcohol use during pregnancy damages unborn baby's brain. You might want to cut down your alcohol intake when you're pregnant. You can find details on page 27, and that's all the news on New Telegraph newspaper.
On Daily Sun newspaper, Niger Delta Group wants agitators, sponsors of planned protests against the NDDC leadership. Still on Daily Sun newspaper, we're talking about Sokoto government. Iboyi First Lady expressed delight over the Sun Awards. The big story on Daily Sun newspaper, CBN goes tough on bad loans. Move against insider lending, set 180-day compliance deadline. Orders bank directors with bad loans to resign. You can find more detail of this story inside the paper. As well, reps furious with INEC over by-election, summons commission chair over non-conduct of polls for vacant national and state assemblies. Edo Assembly approves death sentence for kidnapping. And then we have Tinubu, Obasanjo, Buhari, Pabio, and others actually pay tributes. Afeniferi, Ariwa, Ohanize, INC, PANDEF, CUPP, PAP, and others too are sending in their condolences. We have two picture stories. Do well to get the paper in more detail of any of the story that is of interest to you.
On Blueprint newspaper, the first story at the top of the paper, Osun LG crisis, ex-council boss buried, SSG APC scribe tango. 5 army officers, 20 soldiers face court-martial in Enugu. Dangote's wealth surges to $23.9 billion, now 86 richest globally according to Forbes. NFL steps down 2 referees over controversial officiating. You can find details on page 32. The big story, positive economic outlook. Nigeria's inflation rate drops to 24.48% after CPI rebasing. The writer says we've not imported single liter of PMS 2025. NNPC Limited declares, says reported importation of over 200 million liters baseless. 789 ex-terrorists undergoing de-radicalization and rehabilitation. CDS is giving a report. Over 120,000 surrender. President Bola Ahmed Tinubu is saying Clark's exit a sobering loss to Nigeria. The writer says federal government, Apabio, Obasanjo, Buhari, Atiku, NGF, others mourn. We have a heat wave, NOA issues health advisory to Nigerians, meaning the weather is going to be very hot and unhealthy. So you might want to watch out for that. Dress properly, sleep properly, stay dehydrated, meaning take a lot of water. You can find details on page 19. Death toll in Benue community attacks rises to 32. Protests against NDDC management will ill-motivated. You can find details on page 9. The last story on Blueprint, NAPTIP intercepts 13 Iraq-bound girls, rescue 11 others from Abuja hotel. This is on sex trafficking or human trafficking. Details can be found on page 6, and that's all the news on Blueprint newspaper.
On the Nation newspaper, tributes rain for Edwin Clark, who actually lived from 1928 to 2025. Tinubu, ex-presidents and governors' orders extol Ijaw leader. Anxiety in Osun State as police confirm 6 dead in the violence. And then we are having CBN Access Bank chiefs with toxic loans. You can find more detail of it. And then we have this big historical relief where the president wipes out long outstanding pension backlog. You can take a look at it, read about what's happening regarding some of the outstanding pensions that the president was able to wipe out, and then know what and how it will affect you. And that's all on the Nation newspaper.
On Punch Sport Extra, the big story, agony and ecstasy. Lukman returned mad as Onyedika's broke dump Atlanta out of UCL. Chukwueze Milan crash out against Feyenoord. You can find details on page 7. Madrid versus Man City. Can citizens stun stuttering Los Blancos? A question. You can find answers today. Newcastle reignite Boniface interest or will be ice European competition with Fulham. Why sports comeback gives us morale. This is a statement from Osimhen. Mikel knocks Maresca, Sanchez amid Blues woes. Details can be found on page 6. Gunners get Saka, Martinelli boost, meaning they're back. Barca have nothing to celebrate yet, the Young is saying. United risks relegation, a statement from Rio Ferdinand. Villa versus Liverpool, Red 6 10-point lead with win at Birmingham. Cena case million miles away from doping, says WADA. Joshua still heavyweight biggest star. Statement from his manager, and you can find details on page 2. And that's all the news on Point Sport Extra.
On Business Day newspaper, rebates inflation rate strokes interest rate uncertainty. You can read that big story on the front page and on page 31. Petrol import persists amid rising local import. NNPC denies importing in 2025. Business confidence grow as reform bears fruit. You can find that story on page 30. Nigerians $34 billion lithium reserve in demand amid global rush. So we could do well to see how we can actually get that to boost whatever we are getting in the country. You can read that story on page 31, and that is all on Business Day newspaper.
On the Matrix Sport newspaper, EPL, I feel great indeed is speak on Leicester City injury return. UCL playoff, AC Milan, Atlanta, Monaco crash out Bayern in narrow escape. Rio Ferdinand takes stance on call for Ruben Amorim's sack. We have the Premier League table, Liverpool still at the top, and we also have La Liga, Real Madrid still topping, and that's all the news on Matrix Sport.
And it's how far we can go on the program this morning. So thank you so much to all our production crew. Thank you as well to our viewers and our supporters. We look forward again to doing this together tomorrow. Do have a great day ahead.